I'm Eli and I'm 28. Basically, since I was a kid, I've always been the sidekick. Never the star, never the chosen one, just around. My younger brother, Mason, he was the golden boy, soccer star, got straight A's, you name it. He was mom and dad's pride and joy. And me? I was the one who bailated him out when he wrecked his car, paid his parking tickets so he wouldn't get in trouble and miss a trip to Cancun. The guy who covered for him when he ditched family stuff, all to keep the peace. They called it being a good big brother. I called it being invisible with a credit card. Things were easier when I lived far away. I packed up and moved to Chicago right after college, got a job there, and slowly built myself a decent life. I had a small apartment, a steady paycheck, a quiet existence. But every time I went back home, which was usually for birthdays, weddings, or when Mom said she missed me, I'd turn back into the extra person, the tag-along in my own family. All the conversations always centered on Mason, his promotions, his new girlfriend, the charity run he did last year. Even when I had something to share, like my recent promotion to senior analyst, it just didn't register. Mom would give a half-hearted smile, looking past me, already changing the subject to Mason's trip to Dubai. Dad would mumble something about my job not being real work and then switch the channel to the game. And yet I kept going back. It wasn't that I thought things would magically change, but I hoped, just hoped, they'd notice me, appreciate the effort at least. So every Christmas there were gifts. And during COVID, when money was tight, I chipped in on their mortgage. Sent Mason a few $100 here and there, always before Friday, always with a thanks text that felt totally generic. They never even asked where the cash came from. Figured I was doing okay, I guess. You don't have a family of your own, Mom said once. You can afford to help your brother. Then came Dad's 60th. Backyard barbecue, nothing fancy. Just family, neighbors, and those cheap paper plates piled high with burgers. I flew in for the weekend, spent half of Friday night helping Mom with the decorations. Even paid for the cake after she realized hers was too small. Saturday, the house was packed by noon. Mason showed up late, as usual, all swaggering in with a new watch and his girlfriend, Tessa. Apparently, she just started a YouTube thing about minimalist living while rocking $400 sandals, go figure. Dad lit up seeing him, gave him a huge hug, laughed like he hadn't smiled in ages. Then he looked at me, gave a quick nod, and went right back to Mason. It felt like I was just some neighbor who dropped off the chips. Dinner happened, drinks flowed. Everyone huddled around the fire pit, sharing stories and all that fake family banter. You know, that surface stuff when there's a ton of unspoken stuff buried under years and years of silence. So that's how it went down. My cousin Jake, or maybe it was him, he'd had a few too many, asked what I was up to. I told him about this new security system I'd helped build for a trucking company. It was saving them a fortune every month. We barely got a word in edgewise before Mason, my brother, started bragging about some deal he'd made. Dad slapped him on the back, all smiles. "That's my boy," he boomed. "Now that's making a real difference," I chuckled. It wasn't a happy laugh, though, more like that empty, bitter feeling you get when you realize you'll never be good enough. "Guess I'm just here to pay the bills, huh?" I cracked, trying to make light of it. Then my dad, holding his drink, let loose something loud enough for the whole patio to hear. "You've always been a leech, Eli. Your brother's the one who actually matters." Nobody freaked out. A few people shifted uncomfortably, some mumbled laughs. Mom tried to shut him up, but it was too late. My gut twisted. It wasn't the shock, it was that for once he'd said it out loud. I didn't do anything dramatic. No yelling, no storming off, no movie-style drink throwing. I just stood there for a beat, nodded slowly, and then went inside. I grabbed my bag, booked a flight back to Chicago, and left. No note, no farewells, just nothing. The days after were weirdly peaceful. No texts, no calls, no fake "how are you?" from family, just quiet. All right, trying to act like I wasn't affected, I went back to my job, started concentrating on myself, and stopped the automatic money transfer I'd been sending Mason until he got things together. I dropped the family phone plan I was still paying for, including the data Mason used to listen to music at the gym. Then, I quietly got off the shared Netflix account they were all using and sort of vanished from their finances, one bill at a time. About 3 weeks later, while I was cooking dinner, my phone vibrated. It was a text from Mason, short and kind of annoyed. "Why did you stop sending me money?" I just stared at it for a second and then typed back. Didn't want to waste it on someone who already has everything that matters. I've never hit send so fast in my life. After that, things got crazy. My mom called a few days later. I didn't pick up. Then I got a bunch of texts. At first, they were worried, then trying to make me feel guilty, then straight up angry. "You're being childish," they all said. "We're family. Mason needs you right now." I ignored all of them. It wasn't that I was being mean. I was just done. but what I never thought would happen was how quickly things would fall apart without me. It started subtly with small clues that the supports I'd been secretly maintaining for years were starting to crumble, now that I wasn't around to keep them up. The first call was from my Aunt Linda. She never really took sides, always just stayed in the background with a shrug and a nod. But this time, she wasn't being neutral. "Eli," she said, after I let her voicemail get me, then immediately called me again. "Your mom's in tears." So Mom says Mason's behind on rent and she and Dad are raiding their savings to bail him out. I was floored. I just sat there, staring at the wall like maybe the paint would tell me how to finally say what I'd been hiding for years. I told her straight up, I stopped helping. Like, duh, it wasn't really his money to begin with, was it? She was quiet for a bit, then let out this huge sigh. "You know how they are," she said. "They don't think things through until they're totally swamped." I just said, maybe that's the only way they'll learn, and hung up. Things went downhill after that, or maybe uphill depending on how you look at it. Turns out, without my $500 every other week, Mason missed rent 2 months running. His credit card debt piled up fast. Tessa, who thought editing YouTube thumbnails was hard work, ditched him the minute his Venmo payments started bouncing. She even put up a weepy breakup video called "Leaving a Toxic Relationship." My truth, and it got a ton more views than anything she'd ever done before. The irony wasn't lost on me, not one bit. And then came the part that nobody saw coming. My parents' money problems started when I was a kid. Dad always bragged about how real men handle their finances without complaining. What he never mentioned was all the secret help he got, like the $800 I'd slip them every Christmas for home repairs, or that loan I paid off quietly after he blew it on some bad business deal 5 years back. Because, Mom said, he doesn't need to be embarrassed on top of everything else. With me gone, the place wasn't exactly spotless. Their internet went down. Mom had to bail on book club since they couldn't have it at their house anymore. Dad's truck got taken away. Apparently he'd been using Mason's name to get credit. Nobody ever copped to that, though. The people collecting the debt really made it hurt. No one came to me for help directly. They went to Linda, my cousin Jake, and this old friend from high school who was still around. I guess they thought somebody else could talk some sense into me. Someone even tried to guilt-trip me on LinkedIn, seriously. The email from Mom was the final thing, "Come home." She kept it brief, but every word felt like it was ripped straight from a how-to-manipulate handbook. "Your father isn't doing well. Mason's trying his best. I know you're mad, but this family needs you. We always have. Please think about what's truly important." I read it 5 times. Then I opened a draft, wrote a reply, and deleted it. What was I supposed to say? That I had thought about what mattered for 28 years, and apparently it was never me. That I'd spent birthdays listening to my dad gush about Mason's future while I was stuck in the kitchen, doing dishes. That when I graduated college, they sent me a card and... So I signed the papers, but instead of a fancy graduation party, I rented a boat to celebrate Mason getting his high school diploma. I just didn't say anything back. And for the first time ever, it hit them they actually missed me. Not the me who sat quietly at the dinner table, half listening. Not the me who secretly paid their bills, but the real me, the one they'd taken for granted every single day. And that silence. Man, it was deafening. Then Linda texted again. She said, "You gotta see this," and sent a screenshot of a Facebook post from Mom. It was a picture of her and Dad on some porch, definitely not theirs. Probably borrowed it for the photo op. The caption? "Family isn't about money, it's about love. Some people forget that when they walk away." The comments were flooded with sympathy. A bunch of people knowing next to nothing were all hearts and "You're such strong parents." I didn't comment. I didn't even like the post. I just stared, this weird feeling washing over me. It wasn't anger, it wasn't sadness, it was more like a cold, hard realization. This wasn't new, it was just the first time I hadn't swept it under the rug. But here's the crazy part, the thing nobody saw coming. 2 weeks after that Facebook post, a letter showed up. Not an email, not a text, a real honest-to-goodness letter. A real envelope. Blue ink. My name, written in that fancy cursive Mom used when she was trying to be all proper. It had been forwarded from my old college address. I carefully opened it, bracing myself for another round of guilt or some backhanded apology. Instead, I found something totally unexpected. Inside was this long handwritten letter, stained with tears in the corner and a little coffee splatter near the bottom. Like she spilled her drink while trying to put her thoughts together. It wasn't an "I'm sorry," though, of course not. It was different. It started, "Eli, I know you probably won't even look at this, and if you do, you'll just think I'm making stuff up." She went on, "Maybe I am. Maybe I deserve the silent treatment. But I have to tell you something. Your dad's really sick. He won't admit it to anybody, but the doctor said it's his heart. He's terrified. That's why he's been acting out so much. That's why he said those awful things." Then she wrote about my brother. Mason's having a hard time, too. He's not as tough as he seems. He never has been. You were always the rock for all of us. It's not that we loved you any less, it's just you always knew how to handle things. You were always so steady, so dependable. Maybe that wasn't right. Maybe we put too much on your shoulders. The letter ended with, "But Eli, families mess up. And right now, ours is a mess. We're falling apart. We need you. Please come home." I should have felt something. It should have broken through the wall around my heart, pulled at that familiar guilt that used to cling to me. But I felt absolutely nothing. Just exhausted. Not the kind of tired a good night's sleep can fix, but the kind that settles deep down inside you. The kind you get from carrying too much weight for too long. Part of me always wondered if what my dad and Mason said was the truth, you know. All that stuff they kept from me, all their expectations, it gnawed at me. So after all this time, I finally did something. I started digging. I didn't call or text anyone, just did some online sleuthing. I found Mason's LinkedIn still listed as a freelance consultant, but nothing recent. Turns out the company he'd worked for had quietly dropped him from their site 6 months ago. Then I checked public records. The guy'd been evicted twice. And then the final piece fell into place. I looked up my parents' house and it was in pre-foreclosure. Suddenly everything clicked. That letter, those posts, all those calls from relatives I hadn't talked to in ages, they weren't calling because they missed me. Nope, it was because the bank finally stopped playing games. But get this, they had no clue what I'd been up to. A week after I stormed out of that barbecue, while they were still passing the potato salad and gushing over Mason's latest business venture, I was already looking at houses. Specifically, houses in their neighborhood on their block. And I bought one. Not to live in, not to rent out, just to own. It's 2 doors down from there's a real fixer-upper, needs a new roof and some serious foundation work. I paid cash, set up the renovations under some dummy company so no one could trace it back to me, and even got a beat-up old car to park out front to make it look deserted. They never even noticed. But they will. See, while they were stressing about the bank breathing down their necks, the bills mounting up, and Mason's backup plan disappearing, something else was brewing, and it all blew up on a soggy Wednesday. I was working from my place when the phone rang. Didn't recognize the number. I let it go to voicemail. Then a few minutes later, my mom called. I answered. Her voice was trembling, frantic. "Eli," she said. "Someone bought the house next door. It's you, isn't it?" I didn't say a word, just let the silence hang there. "I saw your name on the paperwork," she said, her voice breaking. "You've been here the whole time, watching us." Still, I kept quiet. "I don't get it. Why would you?" Finally, I spoke, cool and collected, like I'd rehearsed it because I was curious to see what would happen. When the dam broke, she started crying. Not the big, theatrical kind, just soft, defeated sounds. "Eli, we're losing everything." "You already lost me," I said, and I hung up. But that wasn't the end of it, because then came the aftermath. Mason, who hadn't held down a real job in ages, tried to rewrite the narrative online, said I was cutting the family off to be mean. He put out a now-deleted tweet calling me a terrible person. But I had proof. Not actual receipts, you know? I never had to post screenshots or anything. People remembered the cousin whose college books I paid for, the uncle whose hospital bill I took care of, the niece I sent a laptop to during the lockdown. They finally reached out, all quiet and apologetic. "We didn't know," they said. "We're so sorry." Honestly, I didn't need a huge fight. I just needed them to finally, truly see me. And now, with those foreclosure signs popping up in the family group chat dead silent, here I am, sitting on the porch of that little fixer-upper down the street, sipping coffee, watching them scramble. It wasn't about being mean, it was about seeing things clearly. Sometimes, you know, the only way to show people what you're worth is to just disappear. But then, right when I thought things were settled, when I figured they'd learned their lesson, an envelope showed up. It wasn't from Mom, it was from Mason. Inside, a check signed and a note that just said, "You win." That's when it hit me he still didn't get it. This whole thing was never about winning, and what I did next, it changed everything. I just stared at that check for a long time. It wasn't much money, not even close to enough for a decent apartment for a month anywhere. But that "you win" thing, that said it all, like it was some kind of competition, like being seen, being valued, choosing myself like that was some stupid game I had to win. That's when it really sunk in. He didn't get it. None of them did. Walking away wasn't about proving a point or getting even or even hurting anyone. Although I'm not gonna lie, seeing them struggle did feel kinda good sometimes. No, I was just done. Done being their emotional punching bag, their unpaid maid, their last resort. I was so done being the go-to guy, the one they only called when something needed to be taken care of, like bills or broken stuff. But even when things fell apart for them, they couldn't stand the fact that I finally stepped away. Still, I didn't trash the check. I didn't put it on display either. I just tucked it away in a drawer unopened and let it sit there, a relic from a past life. Then I did something they never saw coming. I moved on. I sold the house next door. I didn't even go back to see it during the sale. A local investor bought it, and the last I heard, he was going to tear it down and build something new. A fresh start. That felt good. I couldn't keep watching their lives fall apart. I didn't want to keep track of things from the sidelines. I wanted a life where I was important, not because I was helpful or reliable, but just because I was me. So I started saying yes to things I'd always put off. I booked a trip to Iceland. Just me, my camera, and no plans. I signed up for cooking classes because I was sick of frozen dinners and eating alone. I even joined a local hiking group, which I used to make fun of when coworkers asked, always thinking, why would I want to spend a Saturday with strangers? Turns out, strangers can become something better than family. Some of them did. A few months into this new way of living, I met Danny. She was no nonsense, intelligent, and had this way of calling people out when they sold themselves short. I realized she'd picked up on how I always led with my job title when I met people. One day, over coffee, she said, "You know, you're not your job. I mean, you can be if you want, but that's a pretty limiting way to see yourself." We started taking slow walks with coffee, having these late-night talks that stretched into the quiet of early mornings. And it was the first time in ages I didn't feel like I had to jump through hoops to get someone to like me. I didn't have to bankroll someone's ambitions just to have a seat at their table with Danny, the way things were with my ex. I could just be myself. Almost a year after I left my family, my phone rang. The number was blocked. I ignored it. It went to voicemail. It was my dad. His voice was rough, slower than I remembered. He sounded fragile. He said, "Eli, I don't know if this number is still good. I don't even know where to start. I miss you. Your mom misses you too. Mason, well, he's finding his way. But I was wrong, son, wrong for a long time. I know saying that now might not change anything, but if you ever feel like talking, I'm here." I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just sat there with the phone in my hand, listening to this man who'd always equated love with achievement finally understand that his pride had left him all alone. I didn't call him back. Not yet. A week went by, then two. Then one Sunday, while Danny and I were folding laundry in our new place, I said, "I think I might write to him." She glanced up and asked, looking for closure. "No," I said, "I'm ready." The letter I wrote wasn't mean, it wasn't heartless. Look, it wasn't a big, over-the-top thing. It was just me being real. "Dad, I got your message. I've been trying for ages to figure out why things went down the way they did. I'm not writing this to make you feel bad. I just want you to know I had to leave. I needed some breathing room to figure out who I was, not who you all wanted me to be. I wasn't the problem. I never was. I'm not coming back to patch things up. But I'm open to talking on my terms, if you can handle that. Here's my number. I sent it and didn't sit around waiting. I didn't get my hopes up. I'd built something strong, something of my own. I didn't need their apology to move on, but if they gave it, I'd listen. Weeks went by. Then one night, I got a text from a number I didn't know. "Thank you, I don't deserve this, but I'll take it." It was Dad. We grabbed lunch a few days later, just him and me. No huge confessions, no Hollywood endings, just two messed up people sitting there trying to have a conversation. He asked about my job, about what I was up to, about Danny. He even said her name like it meant something to him, not just some generic thing for the life he thought I should have. Finally, he said, "I really screwed up." I just nodded. "Yeah, you did." He didn't even blink, just nodded back. "I'm trying to be better," he said, "even if it's too late." I told him, "It's not too late, it's not the same now." That was what healing looked like for me, not a pretty package with a bow on it. I wasn't going back to the old days, no way. I was building something new instead, something smaller, a bit slower, and way more solid. As for Mason, we didn't speak for a long time. I found out he'd landed a regular job, something reliable. No more of those crazy startup ideas or get-rich-quick stuff, just plain work. Eventually, he got in touch. It wasn't him asking for anything, just a message. He said he finally understood what he'd put me through all those years. He said he was sorry. I didn't respond right away. When I did, I just wrote back, "I believe you." We agreed to take it slow, and we did. That was 2 years ago. My life now isn't some big drama. It's not a revenge tale or a perfect story of forgiveness. It's just my own. I go to work. I come home. I cook with Danny. I read. I laugh. I relax. I send birthday cards to my folks. Sometimes we chat on the phone. Sometimes we don't. Mason and I meet up for a beer once a month. No favors, no awkwardness, just like brothers trying again, doing it differently this time. The truth is, you don't always get the ending you want. But if you fight for it, if you walk away when the pain gets too much and choose peace over what you think you owe someone, you get the ending you need. And that's what happened for me, because I wasn't the problem. I was the reason the house stood as long as it did. And now, at last, I'm the reason my own life does, too.